Okay, when you see that these people have stuck around for as long as they did before they finally said, I'm done mentally, I see that when, as I'm growing up, that is now teaching me to put up with BS that I should not put up with, right? Well, my mama didn't leave, or my grandmama didn't leave, or my auntie didn't leave, or the mother or the sister or the minister at the church didn't leave. You know, unconsciously we know we should leave, but unconsciously we're taught not to leave. We're taught to stay longer than what we should. And so if you're one of those people who have been in a relationship and you said to yourself, like, you stayed in that relationship longer than you know you should have stayed in that relationship, and you're beating yourself up over that, you need to stop beating yourself up over that, because you were probably taught to stay longer than you were supposed to. Welcome to Becoming with Angelina Watkins, where we are turning dreamers into believers and doer, sharing stories of those who have overcome adversity and reached a level of success and living life on their terms. And so we're having open and candid conversations where we are giving you a fresh perspective and the blueprint for you to win at love, life, and money. And I'm your host, Angelina Watkins. And if this is your first time tuning in, I want to welcome you. Um, I am going to talk today about irreconcilable differences. Now, just so you know, in this podcast, I've been sharing my story, my journey of healing, my journey of becoming someone that I was not supposed to be, and then how I overcame all of the shortcomings, the life interruptions, the trauma, the tragedies, the bad experiences, the family dysfunction. How did I overcome all of those things to get unstuck and unbothered so that I could pursue my dreams, so that I can live the life that I wanted without limits? And so when you see me here, I've just been telling my story, taking chunks of my life bit by bit to share with you all in hopes that it may inspire you to understand that, one, you're not alone, and two, if I can overcome, you can overcome. And so make sure you tune in. Every Thursday we drop an episode, and I also do interview people to share their story as well. Because again, if you can hear stories of those who have been where you are and how we overcame and was able to pursue our dreams and find our purpose and just become a better version of ourselves, and hopefully you'll be inspired to do the same and get unstuck and move and do and go and dream and chase and do all of those great things to create the life that you want. But let's get on with the episode. In this episode, I want to talk about irreconcilable differences. Yes, we're going to talk divorce, because divorce has been a very big impact on my life and who I had become and my views on marriage. It has impacted who I am in my marriage. And so I kind of want to take you all back to my childhood on divorce and what I seen growing up and how that impacted my views and the vows that I had made to myself, that I had to break those vows if I was to heal, become a better me, and be able to have a healthy relationships as well as a healthy marriage. But before we get into my story of divorce, I want to kind of share some statistics with you all, because again, divorce has been a big part of my life and the things I've seen growing up. And so I kind of did some research, and I just want to share a few things with you all before I really get into the story. So I was researching, I came across this website called Wilkinson and Finkbeiner. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but Wilkinson and Finkbeiner family law attorneys. And so, considering that they are a family law firm, I think it's probably safe to say that they are a reputable website as to where I got these statistics, because what they did was pull studies and statistical reports from other places and they shared it on their website. So I'm going to tell you to Google it yourself, because nothing I say is going to be should be taken as golden for you to use in news or a thesis or as a reputable reference when writing anything, papers or whatever it may be. Okay, so I got this from their website, and I'm holding them to be true on pulling this statistical information correctly since they're a law firm. So I said all that to say I'm not your final reference. Okay, do your own research. I am not giving you any law advice. I'm not giving you anything for you to use and apply to your life. All right, just got to put that out there. But some statistics I want to share. Almost 50% of all marriages in the US will end in divorce or separation. So half the people that get married get divorced. And then it's estimated that 41% of all first marriages end in divorce. So that's safe to say that most people who get married, about 41% of them, and if they're first marriage, so we're talking about people who've gotten married 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Those people that have been married 5 times, of course, the first time people being married, 41%. I don't even know if that really makes a difference. But anyway, now when they go on to get married for the second time, 60% of those people who get married for the second time will end in a divorce. And if they get married for a third time, the percentage goes up. So as you can see, the more you get married, the more the percentages go up. If the third marriage is 73%, end in divorce. Now, with that alone, I have to say, come on, y'all. You didn't learn from the first marriage. You didn't learn from the second marriage. And you ain't learned from the third marriage. Like, how many times can you get married and divorced, that you don't learn something to make the next marriage work? And so that's where we're going to talk about these irreconcilable differences and why people have irreconcilable differences. Of course, it's going to be my thoughts and my observation and my knowledge and things that I've picked over the years and things I've picked out in my life. But how many times can you get married and divorced before you realize that you need to change, that you are part of the problem, and that something is happening that you are maybe choosing wrong? So here we are, you get married the first time, you get married a second time, you're on your third marriage. What is the pattern that you're seeing here in the men or women that you're choosing to marry, that you're choosing to date? What is the theme that you saw in that first marriage and that second marriage that you need to make sure that you avoid in that third marriage? How were you showing up in that first and second marriage that you need to now heal and transform who you are and your being before you get into that third marriage, so that you're not bringing all that baggage from the first 2 marriages into this third marriage? Something is going wrong and something's not being realized for us to be getting married this many times, okay? And I think it all comes from you just not knowing who you are and what works for you, and keep picking the same type of people, and you're stuck in a cycle, you're stuck in a pattern of who you're choosing, trying to satisfy something within you that you need to heal. So it's really important that we take the time when we have breakups, when we have divorces, to really to do a retrospective reflection into who we are, how we're showing up, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. We got to take that time to heal. So I want to share a few more statistics here. Average duration of first marriages that end in divorce are 8 years. So the average marriage right now that ends in divorce, that 50% of people, it's 8 years. Now, for me, what I seen was longer than 8 years. And so when I saw this statistic of marriages lasting 8 years, I'm like, okay, where's this 8 years coming from? Is it anything to do with generational? Because I saw a lot of long marriages, people married 20, 25, almost 30 years, deciding that they want to get a divorce. So how are you married that long? And then you decide, you know what, this just ain't working for me no more. Like, I am so done with you. You done got on my nerves enough that, 30 years is enough for me. Like, how do you stay somewhere for 30 years? It takes you 30 years to decide, I ain't putting up with your BS no more. I am going to move on. I'm divorcing you. So that's pretty much what that's saying in my world. Because remember, I'm going to talk about what I seen growing up, which is not what some of these statistics says, but of course the statistics is over time, and well, my views have been over time too. Anyway, women um, file the most for divorce. So it's gone from 66% of women to nearly 75% over the last few years, that women are the initiators of divorce, which means we are tired of the BS. We are tired of putting up with the BS, whatever that BS may be. So we are the initiators. So what does that say about the men, that you just don't mind putting up with our BS? Like, you stick around and you say, okay, she done got on my nerves, but I ain't going nowhere. Or perhaps maybe you're like, I'm sick of her BS, but it's cheaper to keep her. And I'll just go over here and do my own thing, but it's cheaper to keep her. I don't know. That's something that I would need someone else to come on here. Let's have a conversation. Then lastly, I just want to talk about, before we get into irreconcilable differences, I can't even talk, y'all. Why do people get divorced? What are the main reasons why people get divorced? And the list here that I got from these statistics still lead to what I'm saying, which is irreconcilable differences. So we got 73% is lack of commitment. 56% we argue too much. Okay, well, duh. That's why we can't reconcile anything. Infidelity is 55%. Again, we ain't seeing eye to eye. I don't think you should cheat and you think it's okay. Married too young is 46%. Well, I think I might have to understand why people who marry young end up getting divorced, because you haven't even given yourself a chance to learn who you are and take on your own identity and define your life and what you want that to be. And now you done got married and you done had kids, and you're being forced to provide and protect, and you're being forced to support and encourage, and you're being forced to now give more than what you've learned to even give. You haven't given yourself to learn some things, because the reality is a lot of us are raised and we're not given all the tools that we need to be adults. Whether we're not learning it in school or whether we're not learning it from our parents, we're not learning the things that we need to know in order to build healthy marriages, okay? We're not learning those things. We're not even seeing those things if 50% of the marriages are falling apart. Unrealistic expectations is at 45%, which I'm surprised that's not higher, with the expectations that we have about what we think marriage should be. And again, irreconcilable differences, because we go into these relationships thinking it should be one way, and that person that we've married doesn't even know this is what you want, or they can't give you what you want. But you go into this marriage expecting them to give you some things that you want. And now that they can't give it to you, they're not willing to give it to you, or whatever it may be, you have decided that you still want this anyway, and you should be giving it to me. And until you give it to me, I'm not happy. And then here we are with the irreconcilable differences, because we have these expectations that we're not willing to give up. We go in with the false expectation that this person is supposed to be someone they are not. And so you married someone based upon what you want them to be or think they should be, and not who they really are. And then you have lack of equality in the relationship, which was 44%. And that's where you have those folks where it's just not equal. And so I think part of that is we go into these marriages thinking that we should be giving 50-50. And I know to be true, especially being married right now, is that marriage is not about 50-50. We've got to get that out of our head. Again, that's that false expectation that I'm bringing half and you bringing half. No, it should be 100-100. I'm bringing 100% of who I am and what I have to offer. You bring 100% of who you are and what you have to offer. And we bring those things together. Okay? It ain't, and you know, I don't want to get too much into that 50-50 thing. That's a whole nother episode. But you got to think about what you're bringing to the table, and then what you're expecting them to do and what you're expecting them to bring in. Are you bringing the same thing? Because we want people to be everything, our knight in shining armor, our protector, our provider. We want them to do so much, but what are you willing to do? Sometimes we're asking them to do things that we aren't even willing to do ourselves, and that's not fair. Lack of preparation for marriage, 41%. Again, premarital, none of that was around when I was growing up. Now, you have a lot of churches now that offer premarital, or other folks have programs or coaching to help you with premarital, to teach you about marriage, and that's where it's really needed. So, okay, so we can get rid of those unrealistic, false expectations of what we think marriage is, what our roles are in marriage, and so we can go in there realistically knowing who I am, what I have to offer, who you are, what you have to offer, and then how my weaknesses and strengths and weaknesses, your strengths and weaknesses, and how we can blend these things together and be a partner and become one. And so premarital is needed, especially when you didn't see good marriages like I didn't growing up. And then domestic violence or abuse, that's about 25%. So that's statistics on marriage. And I want to talk about what all of that is basically irreconcilable differences. Irreconcilable differences. It is when an individual and their spouse cannot get along with one another enough to keep the marriage alive. We cannot come to an agreement. We cannot come and agree on the things that we need to agree on. And so this lack of getting along can cause a whole array of issues in your marriage. And so we come into these marriages with these false expectations, and we can't reconcile, we can't get along, we're arguing, and we can't integrate our lives and become partners and become one, because we can't agree on money, we can't agree on how to spend the money, we can't agree on religion. What church are we going to go to? What God are we going to worship? We can't agree on how to raise the kids, discipline, school, education, whether or not we are going to give our kids everything versus am I going to make my kids work for some stuff. And believe it or not, these differences can really cause problems when you don't know how to reconcile, which means resolve conflict. You got to know how to resolve conflict within yourself before you can even resolve conflict with someone else. And that's where our problems is coming into play. We can't agree on holidays and traditions. We can't agree on politics, friends, and values. Y'all, we just can't agree. We can't agree long enough to leave our ideologies where they are so that we can come together and create our ideologies of what we want to be. So you have both people coming with their own ideologies, their values, their beliefs of what this should be and what it should look like from how they were raised and what they believe to be true. And they hold on to that. They hold on to their traditions and how they did holidays and how they were raised. And even though you may not have been raised in the most perfect manner, because come on now, we all, not all, but a lot of us come from some dysfunction, right? But we don't even know we come from dysfunction. We think how we were raised was the way. That's our norm. What we've seen in our families and in our neighborhoods and in our communities, that's our norm, not knowing that there's some dysfunction there. And right, and that dysfunction that you have not recognized, it's what's showing up in your marriage and why you have these irreconcilable differences. So you come with all of these beliefs and values that you have from growing up, and they come in with theirs, and you're thinking your way is the right way, and they're thinking their way is the right way. And then neither one of you want to stop long enough to determine how is it that we want this to be. Because mama's not always right, daddy's not always right, them aunties ain't always right, grandma ain't even always right. And we won't let go of what we were taught long enough to see another perspective that might be a better way. Your way is not the only way, and your way may not necessarily be the wrong way, but it may not be the best way. There's always more than one way to do something. I always say in my neighborhood, okay, I want to go to the grocery store. There's several routes I can take to get to that grocery store. but what's going to be the best route? Sometimes the shortest route is not always the best route, because I can go the short way and it end up taking me longer to get there because there's more lights. Okay, so if I go this way, it's only a half a mile, but I've got all these lights and now I'm getting all these red lights, and then it's going to take me longer to go to the store, versus if I go the other way, that's 1 mile with no lights, I can get there faster. Both ways are right. Both ways will get me to the store, but which way is the better way? And so we got to start looking at which way is the better way and stop thinking that our way is the only way. Again, irreconcilable differences in marriages. And the biggest thing is, it comes down to, is pride. Pride. So when I looked at the word pride, pride means consciousness of one's own dignity. We are too dead set on being right, our way being right, our way being the only way. We don't want to look like we're wrong. We don't want to look like we failed. We don't want to look like we're stupid. We don't want to look like we have no knowledge. We don't want to look like we don't have any skill. It's all about how we look, our reputation, okay? And how people are going to see me. And so your pride gets in the way because you don't want to admit that where you came from, there might have been some dysfunction. So I'm going to hold on to what I learned and what I was taught and how I was raised, because that is the right way and the best way. Because look at me. Look at me. Look how I turned out. I'm the best that you receive, right? That's our attitude. I'm the best that you receive. And if I'm the best that you receive, then I had to come from something good. Okay? So I'm not going to admit that I came from a dysfunctional family or a dysfunctional neighborhood, or for a poor neighborhood, or some parents that didn't know very much, or a bad education system, because how did I become a great person that you should have married if I admit that I'm a product of my environment? Because we are products of our environment. Nobody wants to admit that they don't know it all and that they're not doing the right things. Pride gets in the way. Pride is one of the biggest reasons why we have irreconcilable differences, because we don't want to give up on what we know and unlearn and unbecome, so that we can become a better person to make this marriage work and resolve conflict. And again, if you can't resolve the conflict within you, which is to admit that you have some dysfunction and some self-sabotaging behaviors, then there's no way you're going to resolve conflict externally. You got to learn to resolve conflict internally before you can resolve it externally. So let me tell you, I've already been talking a long time. Wow. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and tell my story about my childhood. Growing up, my parents divorced when I was in the 11th grade, I think it was final. However, my parents had, my father had left when I was in the 10th grade. But the issues that, as I could see, started well before I was in the 10th grade. They started when I was in the 6th grade. When I was 11 years old is when I began to pay attention and notice there's something not right here. Up until then, I would say that I had the greatest childhood ever. Life was good. We had a nice house, nice car. We went to church. We ate good. Okay, we ate good. People like to come over our house because we had the sugary cereal, and we had the snacks, the chips. You know, we didn't have the generic chips. We had the brand name chips. Like, our house was it, right? But when I get into the 6th grade, I'm 11 years old. That's when I begin to see a shift in the family, a shift in my parents' marriage. And I start to see that they cannot get along. The arguments are starting. And for the most part, you know, as a young child, I don't really know what's going on other than they're arguing. And why do we keep arguing? Why can we not get along? And so eventually the arguments get worse and worse. Eventually, there's some separation in the home. But we're pretending like everything's good because that's what we do and that's what we're taught. They're only doing what they're taught. Okay, we got to admit that. You know, there's the don't tell. There is the girl just stay, the stick and stay. That's what they like to teach you back in the day, especially in church. Just stick and stay. But as you can see, women have decided we're not sticking and staying no more, since 66%, now 75% of the divorces that are filed are by women, because we are tired of y'all telling us to stick and stay. So we ain't sticking and staying. And so eventually, my father moves out when I'm in the 10th grade. Um, that was devastating to me because, oh my God, I come home from church on a Friday night, walk in, the living room furniture is gone. I want to say the piano was gone. Go upstairs and the my parents' bedroom furniture is gone. What the heck is going on here? So that's when I find out, oh, we don't really split. Like, this ain't just no separation in the home now. We don't really split. But what really got to me is the fact that y'all decided that you would split, but there was no conversation. I don't think, as parents, we don't understand how things impact our children. And you think it's all about you, but it does impact your children. But I can understand as an adult now why you're not thinking about how the child is going to feel, because you're going through what you're going through, and you're going through your own pain. And sometimes when you're going through your own pain, you don't have time to stop and think about somebody else's pain. Okay, because you're so consumed with how you're feeling. And divorce hurts, separation hurts, arguments hurt. Okay, can we admit that arguments hurt? And if this has been going on for a while, can you imagine the emotional and mental toll that this is taking on both parties to be going through this? And then you want them to stop long enough to think about the kids? It just doesn't happen that way. Okay, and as a kid, you don't understand that. But as you get older and you mature, you got to look back and understand where they were in the position that they were in and why they were unable to have those conversations with you. But there's no conversation. So here I am, I come home, and I feel like I realized that the man of my life, I was a daddy's girl. He's gone. He done moved out, and he done took the furniture, and now this is over. Okay, irreconcilable at this point. And so now it takes them a while for the divorce to become final, but they get a divorce. Now the kicker is, I see my parents go through this. I see them get divorced. Of course, with anyone, we're sad that our parents don't stay together. If you've ever experienced your parents divorcing, it hurts you that your parents can't work this out. But what does that teach you? What did that teach me? That taught me how to not resolve conflict. Okay? How I didn't learn to resolve conflict because you all couldn't resolve the conflict. You couldn't resolve your differences and whatever those issues that they were having that caused them to finally give it quits and file for the divorce. And so it also taught me to be a runner. Just run from it. You don't have to stick and stay. Just go ahead. If things aren't working out for you, you can just run and go get a divorce. Okay? You don't have to stick around if you're not happy. It also just made me, again, I've told you in previous episodes, the person that I had become, this angry person, this resentful person, this someone who's guarded and protective of her heart. And so this ends up becoming to make me even more guarded, right? Because I got to be strong and I got to get through this. How else am I going to get past this if I sit here and dwell on it? So it's easier to just not deal, bury the feelings of what you're feeling and what you're going through, and just not allow anyone in so that they can hurt you, because I'm hurt. But then also I see their hurt. I see their pain. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with what they've been through. So now I am keeping that. I'm hiding my heart and I'm becoming guarded, because why get in a relationship? It's just so I can be hurt. And so they have been married a long time. I can't really tell you all how many years, but I want to say a good 20 something years. Okay. Now the kicker for this for me is, growing up, here I am from 11 years old, 6th grade until like 11th grade, going into the 12th grade. I am dealing with my parents having these irreconcilable differences, not getting along. But on top of that, I also see a whole lot of other marriages that have been together for well over 20 years of people now getting divorced. And so the church I was going to was a small congregation, but we had some married folks in there. And it just seemed like one by one, I don't know what the catalyst was, but it just seemed like one by one, these women are deciding no more. I'm done with this BS. I'm not putting up with this no more. I'm better off by myself. And they are filing for divorce. These marriages are breaking up, and they don't want to put up with this BS no more. And I'm saying to myself, how in the world are we married for 20 something years? Y'all are going to church together, y'all are praising the same God together, y'all are learning the same godly principles. Why are y'all unable to reconcile these marriages? And when I say I saw a lot of marriages, oh my God, y'all, it was a lot. So what, in my mind, I'm done. I ain't trying to get married. I ain't trying to do all of that just to get divorced. I don't even, again, want to be vulnerable. I think I talked about that in another episode about not being vulnerable, because I don't want to give you the opportunity to hurt me. I don't want to give you the opportunity to come in and I give you me, and then you kind of hurt my heart. Which again, it's still my heart still ends up getting hurt as I get older, but I'm just saying, marriage, like boyfriend, girlfriend, if I don't marry you, I can just leave. When I'm tired, I'm done, it's to me easier to walk away. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking. But marriage, that's not as easy to walk away. And so I was cool on getting married. I seen not to one, not very many. I won't say not a one. I've maybe seen a few marriages that work, but most marriages did not work. So I was not too keen on getting married. Now, deep down in my heart, I wanted to get married. Like, who doesn't? I mean, you grow up fantasizing about the husband and the children and the house and the car and the vacations and going to church together. You know, that's what I seen at first. But then around 11 years old, that all begins to change and I'm not seeing it anymore. And so part of my heart wants to get married, but part of my heart is like, forget that. Why should I get married? Just so I can end up in a divorce? Because everyone else ends up in a divorce. And so what I'm going to do, be with this person for 20 some years, 20, 25, 30 years, be unhappy, and then get divorced? What? Why go through all of that? So I was good on it. I was good on it. Deep down inside, I wanted to meet someone. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted the ring. I wanted to be proposed to. But then there was that other side of me that was like, but I also I don't know if I really want that as well, because I don't want to go through all of that heartache. I don't want to go through all of this wedding and ceremony and saying I love you and I do's and getting married only to get divorced. So I was cool on it. And I'm saying all that to say, again, we have to look at where we are in our lives and ask ourselves, where did we learn how we are? Like, where does that come from? So that we can become those things. We can heal from some of those dysfunctions. We don't sometimes realize that these are dysfunctions. That dysfunction that I saw of everyone, well, not everyone, that's a little exaggeration, but a good 80%, 80 to 90% of the marriages I seen growing up ended up in divorce. I should have calculated it before I started recording this, but I didn't. But I'm telling you, about 80-90% of the people that I know that were married ended up in a divorce. And so because of that, I made a vow to myself, which was, I don't need to get married. A piece of paper means nothing. And so because I told myself, because of what I seen, that a piece of paper doesn't mean anything, then I'm having an internal conflict, because a part of me wants to get married. Part of me wants that paper. And a part of me is saying, nah, forget it. It's not even worth the time or the effort to go through all of that, to open up your heart, to let someone in, and to get married only so that you can be by yourself 20, 30 years later, or filing because you're fed up. And again, that also taught me something. Okay, when you see that these people have stuck around for as long as they did before they finally said, I'm done, mentally, I see that when, as I'm growing up, that is now teaching me to put up with BS that I should not put up with, right? Well, my mama didn't leave, or my grandmama didn't leave, or my auntie didn't leave, or the mother or the sister or the minister at the church didn't leave. You know, unconsciously we know we should leave, but unconsciously we're taught not to leave. We're taught to stay longer than what we should. And so if you're one of those people who have been in a relationship and you said to yourself, like, you stayed in that relationship longer than you know you should have stayed in that relationship, and you're beating yourself up over that, you need to stop beating yourself up over that, because you were probably taught to stay longer than you were supposed to, because you probably saw relationships in which your mother, your auntie, your grandmother, or whomever stayed in that relationship way longer than they should have, and unconsciously they've taught you that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put up with the BS, and you're supposed to stick and stay, and you're supposed to give them a chance over and over and over again. And because they took so long to leave, that's why you take so long to leave. And so you got to understand and give yourself some grace and forgive yourself for staying longer than you should have in a relationship, because I did finally do that. At first I was a runner. I'll get into that into another episode. But then I became the stick and stay. Started staying in relationships longer than I should. And I was in a relationship for a very long time with my daughter's father that I knew I should have left. But why did I not leave? I was trying so desperately to say, you know, maybe I should stay. Maybe I should be more forgiving. Maybe I should give him a chance. You're always running. And here it is. I'm staying and I'm putting up with stuff that after the relationship is over, I'm asking myself, girl, why did you stay that long? But I can't stay there. I have to forgive myself. I have to get unstuck, okay, and be unbothered and know that I did what I was taught to do. And sometimes it's not about words. People say things to you that, you know, you learn from what they say, but we also learn from what they do. We learn from what we see. And that's why sometimes we can learn some dysfunctional, self-sabotaging behaviors, even if our environment seemed to be healthy, because they may not have said some things, but you saw some things and you have taken those things in, and unconsciously you've made vows and principles that you're living by that's not serving you in your future. And that's what I want to make sure that you're getting out of this episode. We are created and we become who we're not supposed to be, or we become someone that is causing our relationships not to work. And we're not taught how to effectively communicate. We're not taught how to resolve conflict. We're not taught how to be empathetic. We're not taught how to control ourselves. We're not taught how to be and build healthy relationships, because we have not become who we're supposed to be. We're not taught how to define ourselves. Everyone wants to define who we are. So we've got all of these things working against us. And then we wonder why we get in these marriages and we're unable to resolve our conflict. We're unable to come together because we weren't taught about the pride. We weren't taught about being prideful and why we are not always right, and how we've got to let go of the pride, and how we've got to be able to create win-win solutions, and that everything that we were taught is not right, that it's okay to be wrong and make mistakes. All of this is working against us because this is what we've learned growing up, okay? Make sure from anything that I said today that you know that marriage or any relationship, it's not just marriage, relationships, period. We break up because we cannot agree. And the most of the time we cannot agree is because we're refusing to let go of the dysfunction, self-sabotaging vows, behaviors, emotions, principles, values, those things that are not serving us in our future. We're refusing to let go of our ideologies that have us stuck. That if we would just learn to unbecome some of those things that we learned that are not healthy, we can become that person that God wants us to be, so that we can flourish in our being. And when you're flourishing in your being, you can then flourish in your marriage. When you're flourishing in your being, you're going to be able to empathize with people. You're going to be able to see other people's perspectives. You're going to be able to resolve conflict, because now you can resolve conflict within yourself. You're going to be able to effectively communicate to make things work. Okay, so that's why we got to heal, people. We got to unbecome. That's how you get unstuck. Getting unstuck is to unbecome and let go of some of those things that we've been holding on to. Let go of some of the hurt and the pain. Let go of some of this dysfunction that we've been taught. And we've got to learn what we think is normal is not always normal. Or we got to understand that sometimes we're both right. It's just which one is better. And you got to know that just because your way is not the better way doesn't mean it's the wrong way. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you unwise. It doesn't make you look crazy out here in these streets. All right. This has been another episode of Becoming with Angelina Watkins. I hope you got something out of this about how to resolve or why marriages don't work and what you need to do if you are married or if you want to get married, how to make this marriage last. And the only way to do that is to heal, from your past, from your upbringing, from your heartaches, from your pains, from the negativity that you've seen, the negativity that you've heard, the things that people, you got to heal from all of those things and unlearn all of that dysfunction so that you can become the person that you're supposed to be and bring that person into the relationship. Because what you have here, let me go back and then I'm going to end this. What you have here is people getting married that have not healed. I'm going to say it again. You got these marriages not working because two people are coming together and they have not healed. They don't know who they are. They don't know their purpose. They don't know why they should be coming together. They have not let go of their past. They're bringing all of that pain and that baggage into the marriage. And you have got to heal from those things and bring a different person, a better version of yourself into the marriage. And the problem is we're having these irreconcilable differences because you're bringing the unhealed you and they're bringing the unhealed them into the marriage. And unhealed are going to have irreconcilable differences. Period, point blank. You got to heal, people. You got to get over your past. You got to let go of those things. You got to let go of the dysfunction. You got to let go of the self-sabotaging behavior. You got to let go of the ideologies. You got to unbecome and unlearn so you can become a better version of yourself and bring the best you to that relationship and to that marriage, not the unhealed you. Because the unhealed you is not the best you. The unhealed you is wanting you to become the best you so that you can have that abundant life and live life on your terms. Okay, where you are, I'm closing, y'all. I'm closing. Where you are is not where you have to be. Your past does not define you. You define you. So heal, transform, and pursue you. See you next time.